Today's video is sponsored by Genshin Impact. The mark of a good anime is if you get so attached to the characters that when they die, you feel as though you've lost somebody in real life. Very few anime have been able to do this at such a high level that the death of these certain characters leaves a ripple effect across the entirety of the anime community. Times where fans of the show, or even people who don't watch the show, understand the importance of a massively important character to the timeline of a certain anime dying. Even as somebody who hadn't watched One Piece, I heard the news of Ace's death. I watched Jiraiya's death as it simulcast in Japanese like 7 years ago. And deaths of these magnitudes not only devastate fandoms, but also spark hundreds of theories. Because here's the thing about a big time death. Nobody truly wants to believe it's for real. But unfortunately for us, a lot of these big name deaths are for real, and we'll never see those characters again. However, that's not always the case. See, we've seen plenty of circumstances where a character dies and comes back a couple episodes, a couple dozen episodes, or even a couple hundred episodes later. And the most recent death that left a huge wake in the anime community was the death of Kurama. And while technically the first video I ever did on this page was saying Kurama is coming back to life, today I have much more definitive evidence of such. But before we get into all that, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And while I got you believing in the good news, guys, go ahead and follow my 3 other YouTube channels. The first being the Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto, I talk about every other anime. We just dropped a video about Bleach, and I'm right around the 500 mark in One Piece right now, so give me another 6 months and we'll be talking about One Piece. The other 2 channels are NC Gamer 23, where instead of talking anime, I play video games, and Hammer's Collection, where instead of talking anime while sitting in the chair, I do it while I build those big old statues behind me. Before we get into all that, guys, today we have a brand new sponsor for today's video, Genshin Impact. See, I played Genshin the day it came out, and I'm a massive fan of the game. And while the alluring combat, fantastic map design, and beautifully drawn characters are the reason that Genshin Impact is one of the top selling games in the world right now, I think we all know the true reason Genshin's a cut above. And that would be none other than Paimon. Paimon is an NPC, but they're a lot more than that. They're your best friend, they're your co-pilot, they are your guide through Teyvat. See, the Traveler meets Paimon in the very beginning of the game, when the Traveler fishes Paimon out of a lake that Paimon otherwise would have drowned in. But little did we know when we were fishing this little chubby-legged icon out of that lake that they would become so integral to the story. And even if you don't play Genshin Impact, you've probably heard Paimon's voice before. If you've been scrolling through TikTok and you've heard the sound, ehe, te nandayo. Well, that's Paimon being very upset with a certain magical bard. But why are we talking about Paimon so much today? Well, there's something brewing. See, we all know that Paimon is Genshin Impact's icon. However, we're trying to prove that to the world. See, Genshin Impact fans from all across the world are taking to Twitter right now to prove that Paimon is the icon we all know and love. Simply by using the hashtag #BeingGenshinIcon, we are spreading the word of Paimon's iconacy. Is iconacy a word? So come to Twitter with me and do your best Paimon stance as we use hashtag #BeingGenshinIcon. And if we all get together as a community that loves Genshin Impact and spread the word of Paimon's icon status, then her icon status will no longer be deniable. So tell your friends who love Genshin Impact, or maybe just some friends that might like the jokes and sounds that have come out of Paimon's presence, to take to Twitter right now to help Paimon become the household name that we know they deserve to be. And if you still haven't gotten to downloading Genshin Impact, you can download it using the link in my description. So come on, guys, let's make Genshin's icon the world's icon. So Kurama, once the biggest antagonist in the entirety of Naruto's storyline, the demon fox that plagued the Hidden Leaf, originally captured by Madara and used in battle against Hashirama, suppressed by Hashirama and sealed into his wife Mito Uzumaki, who lived as the Jinchuriki of Kurama for 100 or so years. And then Kurama was sealed inside of another Uzumaki, but this time Kushina, who would serve as the Jinchuriki for Kurama for about 12 or so years. Until, of course, Obito attacked the village on the night of her giving birth to Naruto, when her Jinchuriki seal was at its weakest. And as Kurama broke out of his seal and raged against Konoha under control of Obito's Sharingan, the true demon of the fox was put on full display. But that was far from the last time we would see Kurama, as Naruto was put on the receiving end of Kurama's Yang half after Minato used Death Reaper seal on him. Yang half of Kurama being his evil side. And thus throughout part 1 of Naruto, Naruto is constantly plagued by an evil, somewhat omnipotent being living inside of him. But Naruto being Naruto eventually fosters a relationship with Kurama. And as we work on Naruto and Kurama becoming closer, eventually becoming facsimiles of best friends, their power increases through trust until we got to Boruto, when Kurama told Naruto about a new mode. This mode was called Baryon mode, a mode where Kurama and Naruto would collide their chakra to make a new type of energy. However, since they were colliding their chakra like a nuclear reactor, their chakra was being destroyed. And that's all that Kurama was made of, chakra. So Kurama, wanting to make sure that Naruto would still be around to lead the village and be with his family, decided to expend more chakra than Naruto to burn his chakra out before Naruto ran out of his chakra. Because even though Naruto is made out of flesh and blood, if he was to destroy the entirety of his chakra, he would die. And thus, in a final show of Kurama's full growth as a character, Kurama gave his life to protect Naruto. But here's the thing, while that's a gorgeous character arc, going from the antagonist of part 1 all the way to somebody who would give their life for one of the most powerful people on earth, because Kurama went through this character arc and all of this growth, none of us can truly believe that he's gone. And while I've talked on numerous theories about how Kurama could be brought back to life, like the fact that technically we don't know whether or not the Gold and Silver brothers are still sealed in the gourd in 1010 store. Well, technically only Ginkaku was sealed in the Benishaga, the gourd that the Gold and Silver brothers carried, while Kinkaku was sealed in the Kohaku no Johei. But regardless, both Kinkaku and Genkaku were sealed in magical gourds that were thrown into the Ghetto statue. However, they didn't exist in the Ghetto statue for very long, because after Gyuki and the yang half of Kurama are pulled into the Ten Tails, it spits out those 2 gourds because it doesn't need them anymore. And while we do see Samui released from the Benishago, Genkaku is never released. But there is actually pretty solid evidence that Genkaku was released from this gourd and sent back to the afterlife, because Genkaku was sealed in the Benishago with his Kokinjo, which was a rope that he used to pull people's word souls out of their bodies so they could be sealed in said Benishago. And right next to the Benishago in 1010's shop is the Kokinjo, which 1010 would have only been able to get her hands on if they had released Genkaku and just taken the sacred treasure from him when he dissipated back to the Pure Lands. Or they just reached into the Benishago and pulled it out, I don't know. But regardless of whether or not Genkaku has been released or not released, we don't know what happened to Kinkaku, because for all we know, he could very much still be in the Kohaku no Johei, since there's absolutely no way he could have broken out of it, and it's still in the possession of the Hidden Cloud. But why are we talking about the Gold and Silver brothers? Well, that's because, like we said about with Kurama earlier, Kurama is simply made of chakra, and if a tailed beast dies, as long as its chakra still exists on Earth, it will reform somewhere else. Kinkaku and Kinkaku manifest Kurama's chakra. So let's say, should Kinkaku ever be released from the Kohaku no Johei, his chakra existing on Earth would give Kurama somewhere else to manifest. But this theory is doubtful at best. The second theory we explored in the original video is the fact that there's a Ten-Tail that still exists, that Naruto could take this Ten-Tail into himself, essentially becoming the next sage of 6 paths, awaken a Rinne Sharingan, and then use creation of all things to divert the chakra from the Ten Tails into Kurama Part 2. While this obviously isn't the restoration of our original Kurama, it's a new, shiny Kurama. And since creation of all things basically allows you to mold your imagination into physical form, he could probably give the Kurama the personality and memories of the previous Kurama. But even that's not what we're talking about today. Because here's the thing, Kurama's chakra still very much exists on Earth. In fact, it shouldn't be long at all until we see him reincarnated. And you want to know, ironically, who the key to Kurama's reincarnation is? Boruto. You see, we talked in the original theory about how Boruto and Himawari were born with whiskers, but one less than Naruto, because Kushina was pregnant with Naruto while she was the Jinchuriki of Kurama, and thus there's a solid possibility that Naruto and Kurama's DNA was actually intermingled. And the one less whisker is evidence of the fact that they're one generation removed from the Kurama DNA. But once again, even that's not what I'm talking about. Travel back with me to the Chunin exams in Boruto when the show was good. Momoshiki and Kinshiki have descended to the earth to finish what Kaguya couldn't. Partially looking for the traitor Kaguya and partially trying to finish her work to restore the good name of the Otsutsuki, Momoshiki and Kinshiki begin looking for the nine-tailed beasts, because they want to grab the nine-tailed beast and shove them all into one to make a ten-tails. And then Momoshiki would feed Kinshiki to said ten-tails to grow a god tree, and then eat the chakra fruit that Kaguya wasn't able to consume herself. And honestly, he was off to a pretty good clip. Kinshiki, Momoshiki, and Oroshiki in the anime, not in the movie, pulled up on Killer Bee as the first thing they did when they got to the planet. Kinshiki and Momoshiki then proceeded to pretty much fade Killer Bee, extracting Gyuki in the process. At least that's what Killer Killer Bee wanted them to think. See, Killer Bee is incredibly overwhelmed by the fight. He shoots a tailed beast bomb at Momoshiki, which Momoshiki absorbs and fires back at him at a higher level of strength. That's what Momoshiki's Rinnegan abilities are able to do. Absorb with one hand, fire back with the other at a higher amplitude. However, Killer Bee, understanding that he was fighting people stronger than him, made an octopus clone. See, this is a massive misunderstanding in both the Naruto and Boruto community. But this isn't on fans because they simply didn't make this clear. But basically, since Killer Bee sees he's significantly outmatched here, he leaves a clone of Gyuki and swims away from the battle. This clone of Gyuki is what's absorbed by Momoshiki, meaning that Killer Bee still is very much the Jinchuriki of Gyuki. So when everyone's like,
oh, was Killer Bee dead? Did Killer Bee survive the fight against Momoshiki?
Yes, he did. The only reason we know that is because they show it in the credits of Boruto the movie, though there's no confirmation of it in the anime. And since the Momoshiki fight, we simply haven't seen Killer Bee again. So like, didn't do a great job of proving to us that he's alive. Regardless, after Momoshiki is done absorbing Gyuki, he captures Naruto. And Momoshiki uses space-time ninjutsu to pull Naruto to a different dimension, where he chains him up and begins to extract Kurama's chakra. In fact, Momoshiki extracts half of Kurama's chakra over a process that takes 6 hours. Now, another common misconception is that Momoshiki is absorbing Naruto's chakra. He's not. He had no interest in Naruto's chakra. He was absorbing Kurama's chakra because he was trying to reform the 10 tails. Also, he was using the chakra of the tailed beast to feed the chakra pills that he was eating to make himself stronger. But let's get to the root of what I just said. Momoshiki took half of Kurama's chakra. And it's not like that chakra just disappeared once it got into Momoshiki. That is still Kurama's chakra running through the veins of somebody else. And once again, Kurama is just chakra. But I know what you're saying. You're saying,
well, yeah, Nick, but Momoshiki dies in the end of the movie, or at episode 65 or so in the anime.
And thus, if Momoshiki dies, shouldn't that Kurama's chakra dissipate elsewhere? Well, that would be the case if Momoshiki wasn't an Otsutsuki. Well, wasn't an Otsutsuki who planted a karma marking on somebody else. Yes, usually, if Momoshiki had half of Kurama's chakra and therefore was like a pseudo half Nine Tails Jinchuriki, if he died, the chakra would dissipate from his body and then manifest Kurama somewhere else. As to whether or not that chakra would dissipate into the universe and then manifest half of Kurama somewhere else, or simply just go back to Naruto, we don't know. We never had 2 Jinchuriki of the same tailed beast running around and then have one of them die. I mean, technically we sort of have, actually. In fact, we definitely have, and actually that point bolsters my point. See, after the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Naruto has Minato's half of Kurama inside of him. Because Naruto has had the Yang half of Kurama pulled out of him, so Minato transfers the Yin half of Kurama inside of Naruto to keep him alive. However, after the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War and the defeating of Kaguya, aka the 10 Tails, the tailed beasts are kind of spit back out. And then they're all picked up by Sasuke, who proceeds to lose to Naruto using the power of all 9 tailed beasts simultaneously. And people think they're the same in power. But after Sasuke's done being edgy, Naruto gets the other half of Kurama back, but not immediately. See, they have a conversation and Naruto asks Kurama if he wants to come back to him, to which Kurama says yes, and now Naruto has the entirety of Kurama. Yay! But that's the thing though, when Kurama was released, he had a choice as to whether or not he was going to return to Naruto, implying that if half of a tailed beast is sealed inside of somebody and the other half is just out in the universe not being sealed in something like the Shinigami stomach, then there's no binding force pulling that half into the person that has the other half sealed inside of them, which is to say that hypothetically, even after Momoshiki's death, there would be no binding force pulling that half of Kurama's chakra back to Naruto. Now, the war arc could be an exception because that half of Kurama's chakra was sentient and the half of Kurama's chakra Momoshiki wasn't, to our knowledge. But this is only in the circumstance that if we believe that after Momoshiki's death, his chakra has dissipated, because we also have a large amount of reason to believe that's not the circumstance. See, obviously after Momoshiki's death, he planted a karma seal on Boruto. And while we don't know exactly how karma seals work, we have a pretty good idea. A karma seal is a bit like a cursed mark. It's a mark that an Otsutsuki can leave on any sentient being to Otsutsify their body, aka change their DNA to be Otsutsuki DNA, and also implant their consciousness within. And after a certain amount of time, that person simply becomes an Otsutsuki that the Otsutsuki who put their karma seal on is now able to take over. These are necessary because lower ranking Otsutsukis are thrown grown into 10 tails in order to grow god trees. And Otsutsuki's don't want to just be killing off their lower ranks. But even when Boruto was relatively new to his Kama marking, he had some of the abilities of Momoshiki. That is to say, he had some Otsutsuki abilities, like the ability to absorb ninjutsu, amongst a bunch of other hacks. Think of the fight Boruto versus Boros, where Momoshiki takes over Boruto's body and creates a massive Rasengan that he uses to kill Boros. See, that's all well and good, but where did Boruto get the chakra to produce a Rasengan that large? Boruto, as we know it, doesn't have that kind of chakra. I mean, he can make what? 3 shadow clones? So if Boruto doesn't have the kind of chakra required to make a Rasengan that large or do any of the things that Momoshiki can do when he takes over Boruto's body, whose chakra is Momoshiki using? Well, it has to be his own. It's certainly not Senjutsu chakra. We've never gotten any evidence of the Otsutsuki training in any kind of sage mode outside of Hagoromo, I know. So Momoshiki must be using his own chakra, much like how Kurama used his own chakra to help Naruto. But if Momoshiki still has access to his own chakra, and he incorporated half of Kurama's chakra into his body prior to his death, would it not stand to reason that Momoshiki still has access to that half of Kurama's chakra? And therefore, would it not stand to reason that hypothetically 50% of Kurama's chakra lies within Boruto? And the only reason that we haven't seen Kurama re-manifest is because technically this chakra is inside of somebody, much like how Kurama's chakra usually resided inside of Naruto. However, if let's say Momoshiki were to die and or Boruto were to die, this chakra would in fact be released. And thus, as that chakra entered the universe, Kurama would re-manifest as strong as when either Naruto or Minato used him. Obviously, until Naruto got 100% of Kurama. And if you look even closer at Boruto, this theory makes a lot of sense. You see, because I said earlier that Kurama overexpended his chakra so that he would run out before Naruto. But we don't know that. That's just a theory that's been picked up by and large by the Boruto community because we pretty much assume that there's no way that Naruto has more chakra than Kurama. But what if at the end he did? See, canonically, we know Minato had roughly 50% of Kurama's chakra. And Minato, who was able to spam flying Raijin like it was transformation jutsu, was basically made out of chakra. You see, we know Minato had 50% of Kurama's chakra because he was able to pull 50% of Kurama, I guess, outside of Kurama into the Shinigami's stomach. And that's how Reaper Death Seal works. You can only pull out so much of the soul as your chakra is in comparison to theirs, which in Minato's circumstance was 50%. But it's not crazy for us to assume that Naruto has more chakra than Minato, by probably a fair amount. So if Naruto and Kurama were expending equally and there was only 50% of Kurama, Naruto would most likely be the last one standing. So Kurama's not actually dead, he just changed hosts. But because Boruto, Naruto, and basically everybody but Amado don't understand how the Karma Seal works, they don't know Kurama's in there. And even if they did know Kurama was in there, there's technically nothing they could do. But what do I know? I'm just a man who gets comments on my Twitch streams and decides to make 20-minute videos about them. But if you guys liked this rant into the darkness, please guys, tell me in the comments below. And while you're down there, like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you have the power to make me a writer for Boruto. You should use it.